Good afternoon, and welcome to the Design Leaders Podcast. Every day, I speak with candidates looking to grow in the world of design, development, and construction. I also speak with market leaders at the peak of their career who regularly talk about mentorship and helping the next crop of leaders in their development. This podcast is for those people who are hoping to learn about what the next step in their career could look like. Today, I'm here with Guy Geier, Managing Partner of FXCollaborative. In this role, Guy is responsible for the strategic direction of the firm and its operations. As an architect with over 40 years of experience, he also remains very involved on the design of numerous projects for corporate and institutional clients. Guy's an active voice in the wider design community and has received several honours and recognitions for his contributions to the profession. Guy, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
It's great to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. I always start these episodes the same. So, Guy, if you wouldn't mind telling me a little bit about your background and how you got your start in design.
Sure. How I got my start. Oh, my goodness. Well, I started when I was a kid, and my father was an interior designer and in the retail furniture industry. And he used to take me to every house in our neighborhood that was under construction. We'd walk through and we'd talk about the different spaces and all that kind of thing. And then as time went on, he actually got me involved in the business that he was in retail furniture. I had a summer job selling furniture for a while. And anyway, all of that kind of was some of the basis of it. And then but I hadn't really taken it very seriously until kind of my junior year in high school. I had been interested actually in being an engineer and in the aeronautical engineering world, and got into a class in my high school for mechanical drawing. And the first semester was engineering drafting, and it was very precise, the hardest leads known. And I was drawing machine parts and things like that. And then the second semester of that course was architectural drawing. And we started to draw house plans and elevations and do more freehand drawing and things like that. And I got to like that a lot more. So I kind of put aside the engineering direction and started to pursue architecture in that class. And then subsequently in my senior year, I did an independent study, which was all about architecture and drawing and drafting and things like that. So then I obviously applied to architecture school as a result of all of that, and started at the University of Virginia for my undergraduate school. And then I stayed there for master's. So that's how I got started. It was really through my father and his exposure to the design industry in general.
Interesting. That question is often responded with some sort of kind of family affair, and it's always kind of in the blood. Is kind of how I think about it. Moving a couple of years on, Guy, possibly in the early stages of your career, what are some key milestones or some key experiences that have helped shape your career path?
Yeah. Well, I think I was very fortunate in my career, because I worked for a firm when I got out of school that allowed me to kind of progress. It was a growing firm. When I joined, it was, I don't know, about 50 or 60 people. When I left in 2001, it had grown to about 400 and some. And so as a result of that, there was always something new to do and some new responsibility that they were willing to give me. So not only did I kind of get lucky in terms of progression of responsibilities from designer to project architect to project manager to a studio director, I was also then fortunate because we opened an office in New York in '94, and I volunteered and they agreed to allow me to come to New York and run that office, which I did for 7 years. And so each step of the way, there was always a new opportunity. And I do think whether someone is able to stay at the same firm and get those kinds of opportunities to grow within an organization, or whether you need to move to a different firm to get an opportunity that expands your horizons and allows you to do new things. I think it's important, and this probably applies to any profession or career, not just architecture and interior design, that you continue to push yourself to expand your horizons and try new things and learn new things and make mistakes and learn from your mistakes and all that kind of thing. So I was just fortunate at the time to do that within one organization. But at a certain point, I decided that it just wasn't going to continue that way, right? I was going to be frustrated with some things. So I left, went to another firm and then left there and ended up where I am now at FXCollaborative, where I've been now for 19 years, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's been great. And the same thing has happened here. The firm was smaller when I joined. We've grown the firm, and so new opportunities, new responsibilities, even within the context of this firm, have always been there for me to kind of take advantage of.
But I think that sort of advice, you're absolutely right. It doesn't necessarily need to be industry specific. I'm in recruitment, and I talk about the idea of stepping out your comfort zone, trying something new all the time. I'm a big believer that what is it? Calm seas don't create skilled sailors, right? So, go out there and try something, different and difficult, and kind of
It's
see what
interesting you
happens.
bring up the sailing analogy, because I was at a memorial service for somebody named Charlie Thornton. He's a very well-known structural engineer in New York, and he passed away last year, at end of last year, and they had a memorial for him yesterday. And he was a big sailor. And one of the speakers talked about having been sailing with Charlie and getting into a squall of some kind where the water was totally flat, but the wind was blowing like crazy. And he turned to Charlie and said, "What do we do?" And Charlie said, "I don't know. I've never been in this situation before." And I think it was just something that hit me, as we are always finding ourselves in situations we've never been in before. Mm-hmm. And you haven't been trained to deal with necessarily, but you just use your instincts. Mm-hmm. And do what you think is going to work, and hopefully it does, but it doesn't always. And continue to kind of learn in that way.
But I think that analogy nicely segue us into kind of the next topic, which is all around challenges and lessons learned. So, one area in which I didn't touch on in the last series was challenges and lessons learned. And, for a longevity of career like you've had, I imagine there are some challenges that you've faced. So I wonder, Guy, what are some of the more significant challenges that you personally have faced in your career, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, probably the biggest challenge I had was after I had left the firm I'd been with for many years and joined another firm. I had an opportunity kind of come out of left field to do something completely different, which was to get out of architecture and get into the furniture business with a company called Vitra, which is a Swiss-based furniture company. And given the history I just told you earlier about my father and him being in the furniture business, it seemed at the time to kind of make sense. It kind of aligned with, okay, let me try something different. I needed a change. Mm-hmm. And so I joined that firm, and it was fun for a while, but I only stayed there about a year. Mm-hmm. Because I realized that in fact I am an architect. Mm-hmm. And that not practicing as an architect, I was really kind of missing something in my life again. So it kind of reaffirmed the decisions I had made to get into architecture and design and to stay the course. And so it was a small detour, but it was a valuable detour because it reaffirmed what it was I really wanted to do. And then following that short detour, I joined FXCollaborative, and I've been there since. So that was a major life learning experience for me. And I think beyond that, I think almost every project that we pursue, win or lose, we learn something about ourselves in terms of what works, what doesn't work, in trying to connect with people and connect with clients and convince them that we are the right firm to do their project. And, you know, probably the losses, you learn more from the losses than the wins. But, you know, we're always kind of looking back on what could we have done differently or better, or what made the difference. And so it's kind of a continuing learning exercise all the time.
100%. I like that, the idea of, lifelong learners. I think most leaders that I speak with in this industry often reaffirm the fact that, they are a lifelong learner. And I think, your story there, I know that in 2020, 2021, in that post-COVID era, there was a lot of people that I was speaking with that were questioning whether architecture was for them or not, and, looking at other opportunities outside of the industry. And already, I would say over 50% of those individuals who did leave the industry have, less than 2 years later, got back in touch with me, learning or wanting to learn what else is out there, back in an architectural design capacity. So I think, the idea of not always, the grass is not always greener, is something probably people ought to take on board. Now, more in kind of a leadership capacity as managing partner, Guy, what principles, what strategies have been instrumental for you in driving success, in driving growth of FX?
Well, I think I would say for me, it's putting people first, and whether that's in pursuing projects and understanding the client and what their real needs are, and what their, as one of our consultants like to tell me, what's their splinter, right, trying to really learn what it is that keeps them up at night, and how you can help them solve those kinds of problems. And that's really a people skill. It's not a design skill. I think we all learn that, design thinking and how to analyze and come up with alternatives to evaluate and present and get feedback. And that's kind of somewhat universal in terms of how you're thought to think, or you're taught to think about as a designer. But it's really the people skills, the ability to kind of draw those things out. And I think that translates also into the management of the firm, getting to know the people, understand what makes them tick, what gets them up and go and into the office every day, what excites them, and understanding, the more you can understand about that, the more you can kind of lead an office and a group of people to achieve your goals.
Interesting. And I think that there's a number of things that you're talking about now that, it's the notion that it really is not necessarily just industry specific. So you'll say, where is the splinter? And then I'll think of myself as like a physio, where is the pain point, and let's press on that pain point, essentially. So I think, whilst obviously as an architect, as a designer, you've got a certain skill set that everyone does have, but the people management, the client development, the client management and relationship piece broadly can be, the lessons that we're learning can be across industries. And I think, it may be the people, as you're talking about there, and putting the people first. But what else? What do you believe sets FXCollaborative apart from others in the industry?
Well, I think a lot of it, again, starts with the people that, we hire very talented people, and we challenge them to do their best work. And We are not a kind of top-down autocratic organization. We're very, I would say, flat in our overall organizational. Well, we do have a hierarchy, obviously, but we really try to allow everyone on staff, all of our employees, to be able to have a say in what's going on in the office, to encourage them to express themselves, voice their concerns and opinions. And I think, we really kind of treat it like a big family where everybody is in it together. And I think that's, from an organization that attracts people to work for us, I think that's very important. I think, we certainly have our values about, really part of our name, right? FXCollaborative. It's both an adverb and a noun, and it's, so we really believe in the collaborative spirit. We work together internally, but we work together with our clients and consultants and contractors and everybody else in the design and building professions to get the work done that we do. It's not something we can do. There are many architects who have a reputation as a sort of individual creator, that kind of works in their ivory tower. We're not. We don't organize ourselves that way. We don't think of ourselves that way. We really think of ourselves as a collective that work together and are committed to sustainability. We're very committed to helping to mitigate climate change, because buildings contribute 40% of greenhouse gases in the world. So we are part of a huge contributor to climate change, and we need to be committed to change that. We're also very committed to social justice and issues that revolve around equity, diversity, and inclusion, and we participate in the community in every way. So in every project that we do, we have a commitment to not just solve the client's problem, but to solve it within the context of society's problems.
But I think what's interesting there is, and I'm sure after this this episode is released, we'll of course share the FXCollaborative website so those listening can see your projects and see the portfolio online. But when I asked you that question, you didn't really talk about the projects. You spoke about the people. You spoke about sustainability and climate change, social justice, and I think that speaks volumes, because the majority of the responses are to do with specifically the project work that you're doing. Now, I know the project work you're doing is brilliant, and I think those who will see where it's shared will agree. But you spoke about the other defining factors, and I think that speaks volumes there, Guy. Moving forward, kind of looking forward now, what are the primary goals, the primary aspirations of the firm in the coming years?
Well, it's coming out of the pandemic. It's been kind of challenging journey the last few years, right? So like many firms in the industry, we had to reduce our size a little bit, and that's brought on a lot of challenges. But we think now that we're on the other side of all of that, and really in an opportunity to grow the firm again, and really finding great people again, finding people to bring into the firm that are going to expand our capabilities and expertise, and be a great fit for our culture. That will be a huge challenge. But I think the opportunities lie in project typologies also that have not necessarily been the typical things that we've done in the past, and that even the industry has done in the past. I think New York, for instance, is going through a huge shift in, the use of office buildings and existing office space, and the conversion of those office buildings to either residential or educational or other uses, is going to be a significant part of our future practice. And we're excited about that because that fits in with so many of the things that we're concerned about from a overall kind of cultural perspective, and even in terms of sustainability. It does not make sense to tear these buildings down and rebuild something in their place. What makes sense is how do you re-engineer, re-architect those buildings to be valuable for what we need now. So we've been working on a number of those kinds of residential conversion projects, and I think that's going to be a large part of our practice in the future. I think in general, reuse of repositioning of existing buildings is going to be a very important part of our practice. The other area that we have not practiced in and to much of a degree is in health sciences, academic science, healthcare, science and technology. And that has continued to be a major field of work for architects and engineers. And I think that that's one area where we are going to focus some real attention to develop our capabilities for that market, because it's going to be huge going forward, as it has been in recent years too. So those are just a few examples. I think the other is in corporate workplace, which has changed obviously because of the pandemic, when hybrid work really took hold, and the rethinking of what an office is and what it means to people, and giving people reasons to go to work, where there are benefits to them being at work, physically at work together with their colleagues, as opposed to staying at home and being on Zoom all day long. So that's a challenge that we're looking forward and already involved with.
There's a few points that you've raised there that I'm particularly excited about, even from the outside looking in, as someone who lives in New York, who pays way too much of a percentage of my income to rent. I'm looking forward to turning a lot of those, interior offices to hopefully, residential facilities. And a recruiter who focuses mostly in S&T, healthcare and health sciences. I look forward to helping you find those people in the future, Guy. Now moving to kind of, professional development and advice. Kind of what advice do you have for young architects, interior designers, even, MEP design professionals that are looking to advance their careers in this space, Guy?
Well, I think the most important thing anybody can do is get away from their desk and get involved with the industry and get involved with building a network, a personal network. And I know that networking, sometimes it's kind of a dirty word in many people's minds. It's just like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to do my job and go home. But if you're going to advance in a career in architecture and design, it is, really critical that you get started early in your career, getting out, being part of organizations, whether that's AIA or IIDA or Cornet or whatever it is, whatever you might have an interest in, and building a personal network and building a personal brand beyond just the association you have with your firm. I often tell our younger staff, networking is like a 401k plan, right? You put a little bit in the beginning, you be consistent with it, and through the magic of compounded interest, your network will grow. Because people will talk to people and they'll introduce you to other people, and it just keeps expanding your world. And this isn't about being on LinkedIn. I mean, that's good, to be on LinkedIn is an important part of this, but just doing something like that that's not going to get you where you need to. It's person to person, face to face, going out, meeting people, getting together for breakfasts and lunches and other social occasions to really get to know people. Because the people that I regularly talk to now are people that I've known for 20, 30 years or more, that we've become friends through the business. I know what their kids are up to, they know what my kids are up to. And it just it breaks down all those barriers that are often there for business transactions to take place, right? Where you're calling a friend for some advice, or you're calling a friend to help them out on a project. And that's really what it takes, I think, to for young people to realize that that's something that's important for them to do, and not to wait and expect somebody else to kind of introduce them to people. They've got to take the initiative and do it themselves.
Completely agree. I think the art of networking, particularly in an age where we have spent a lot of time looking through a screen at one another, has somewhat been lost. And at the time of recording this episode, I know that the New York Design Build Expo is next week. Are you
Right.
heading there, Guy?
Well, I'm going to be on vacation, so I'm not going to personally be there. But we have a number of people speaking and on panels there, and so there will be a number of people there at Javits for the event. And I've done it in the past. I've participated on panels and presentations for that event. So yeah, that's just one of many that people should take advantage of to go.
Absolutely. Our founder of Harper Harrison, Del Connolly, actually just got back from PTC in Hawaii, which is the data center expo. I'm trying to position myself to make the trip next year with him, but I think I need to do a bit more work.
It's always in Hawaii.
Yeah, always in
there
Hawaii.
You go. All right, you need to be next up.
I totally agree with all of that, Guy. The networking, the idea of learning through osmosis next to someone who perhaps knows more than you do, or offering what you know to other people. In that same vein, are there any books, resources, tools that you've used, and that you recommend professionals read and utilize in the field?
You caught me with this one. Well, I'll tell you what I do. I'm not personally a big book reader, for better or worse. But I do read the news, whether it's the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, other things. I'm always reading industry publications that, for now at least, seem to be easily attainable through online distribution and things like that. But I'm pretty voracious in terms of reading those things, and I like sharing articles when I see something that's interesting and applicable to either the firm or to individuals within the firm. I'm always forwarding those articles to people, for them to be aware of. And sometimes it's even about what other architects are doing, or what others, just whatever it might be, to try to expand everyone's thinking and kind of facilitate more conversation. So that's been kind of my focus. The books that I do read are more outside of the profession, like I'm reading Dave Grohl's, the Foo Fighter drummer and guitarist. I'm reading his autobiography. I read Bruce Springsteen's autobiography. I like sitting down reading books about things that are not about the profession or business and that sort of thing.
I understand that. And I think, we're very similar. I love that there's certain areas of design, without being a designer or an architect myself, that I like to, read and learn about. And a lot of these different online publications have specific niches of themselves. So, for example, if you are a healthcare architect, healthcare design magazine, lab and life
Right.
sciences, lab design magazine, and so on and so on. So, whatever area in which you're focusing, those that are listening, I would encourage you to find your online publication,
Exactly.
exactly as Guy said there. And it does segue us nicely into the next section. It's almost as if we planned this, Guy. But touching on personal insight, putting the person behind the professional there, outside of work life, we've just discussed the idea of reading topics that are outside of architecture and outside of business. But what other hobbies, interests do you have that contribute to your overall well-being and your overall creativity as an architect?
Well, I think if you asked that question of anybody who knows me, the first thing would probably be golf. I'm a major golfer. I love the sport. I've played since I was a kid. Um, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to, play at least once or twice a week um, nearby my home. So that's been a great pastime for me. Um, I'm fortunate that I have a bride that allows me that vice to go out and play golf. But to do that, I had to join a group of men who play very early in the morning, and so we usually tee off by 6:30, 6:45.
Wow. I thought I was an early
But the good
riser.
news about that is that I'm usually home by noon, so I still have the whole day ahead of me pretty much.
Mm.
But in any case, that's probably my number one pastime. But I love sports of all kinds as a spectator. I love travel. My wife and I try to travel as much as possible. If I'm away going to a conference or something that's in another city around the country, she'll usually tag along, and we'll add a day or two at the end of the conference to kind of check out the city or the region that we're in. So we love to travel. And I enjoy photography quite a bit. And those are probably the main. And music. I mentioned music. I love to listen to music. I am a big classic rock fan and progressive rock as well. It's one of those kind of things that my kids and my wife and I all have very similar tastes in music. My wife probably tends to not like the louder rock music as much, but the kids are amazing, other than the fact that my daughter likes country music more than any of us, but that's okay. We'll forgive her for that. But we grew up they grew up listening to the music that my wife and I listened to, right? And so they got to like that quite a bit. And so we're very compatible in that way. But I love music of all kinds.
Got you. I think the same thing happened with me, but I was a little bit unfortunate in that my mum and dad were big Backstreet Boys fans, Westlife fans, and ABBA. So I'm not sure I
Yeah,
ended
well,
up getting.
that's a time period music that I'm not really that. No, I'm not into all of that kind of work or that kind of music. But
No, I wish my kind of playlists on my phone kind of more outlined the music you're talking about rather than the music
yeah,
I'm talking about. Uh, but also, Guy, can you share a memorable or lasting memory that, from your career that has impacted you personally, or vice versa, something from your personal life that has impacted your career?
well, there's a story that I like to tell when uh, we're talking. When I'm talking to people about marketing and closing deals, and trying to convince a client that you can do something that maybe you never did before. And this goes way back early in my career. It was the first major corporate headquarters project that I was part of a team for, and went to an interview. And it was to do a headquarters in New Jersey, out in the country. Empty piece. I mean, today I'm not sure that we would even want to do this kind of project, but back then it was what it was. So it was a couple million square foot headquarters out on this kind of rolling farmland in New Jersey. And the engineer on our team was the same engineer that had designed the Twin Towers downtown, the World Trade Center, that were unfortunately destroyed. And we were at the interview, and one of the clients' team asked him, well, you've never designed a suburban office complex before. How does your experience relate to this? And he said, well, we designed the World Trade Center. If you took that and turned it on its side, it's the same thing. And we won the job. And I think, you know, the lesson of that was to me is that you have to take your previous experience, whatever it might be, and make it relatable to the situation at hand, you know, and make a client kind of really comfortable and confident to trust that you know what you're doing, and find that story, find that metaphor, whatever that allows you to do that. So that's a very memorable experience for me.
Interesting. Well, I can only say, you know, as a recruiter, I have no experience in overselling my abilities to clients. I've never done it before, and I don't intend on doing it, but I do like that story there, Guy. And finally, you know, for those that are still listening, 40 minutes in, you know, of course, we're going to share your LinkedIn profile. We'll share the FX Collaborative website. Is there anywhere else that our listeners can either connect with you, learn more about FX, or we can just direct them to learn more in general?
Well, I do have a LinkedIn profile, so you can search my name on LinkedIn and find me there. I also have a podcast. While you are interviewing me on this, I'm usually on the other side of the mic. And I have a podcast called Architecture 5-10-20, and it's about talking to guests about the future of architecture 5, 10, and 20 years out, what they're kind of forecasting, what they see, using their crystal balls to whatever degree they can. And it's a wide range of guests that I have, designers, architects, real estate people, clients, consultants of various kinds, experts in various fields, all having to do one way or the other with the built environment and you know what we do as architects and designers. And it's been a blast. I'm into my third year now doing it, and it's been very educational for me. I've learned a lot, and I'm moving forward. We're in our third season now, so you can find that. You know, any podcast service has it, but it's Architecture 5-10-20, and hopefully your guests will be interested in listening to that too.
Well, I can only imagine, you know, if they've put through one series and now like 7 or 8 episodes of a second series from someone who's not a designer and not an architect, I can only encourage people to go and listen to the designer, to the architect, and have, you know, people listen to you. So Architecture 5-10-20 will definitely share a link to that for those that are still listening, and encourage all of you to go and listen to that as well. From one podcaster to another, Guy, I really appreciate you coming on here. I think, you know, for me personally, you know, it increases my knowledge in an area in which I'm not an architect, but I can keep learning from someone like yourself. For professionals in the market who are wondering what that next step can look like, I hope that this has been valuable, and I really appreciate taking the time today, Guy. Have a good rest of your day.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks, Jakey.